Hey, Evgeny. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I totally forgot to set the live up in advance. So sorry about that, but hopefully people will start to appear if we just give it a couple of minutes.
If we build it, they will come, as they say.
Yes, no, it's my bad. I usually do it on a Sunday and then it just totally slipped my mind. So we have one person here already. So oh, two people. Okay, so whoever you are, people, would you do Yevgeny and I an enormous favor and just let us know if you can hear us properly?
And
That
see
would
us
be
properly.
awesome. That would be awesome. Let me just check that. Right, that looks like it's all working from the YouTube side of things. So we're just going to have to wait and see if anybody shows up. And if not, I would say I'd go and have a cup of tea, but I've also run out of tea. Today is just not a good day in my household. No
Not for
tea.
not for the supplies of tea. I can concur. I think we ran out of tea completely. And for those of you who are not from the United Kingdom, so we have a bank holiday or a state holiday today, to commemorate the late Queen Elizabeth II. And what that means is basically most of the country would have stayed at home, watched the funeral, and drank one cup of tea every 5 minutes, which was what was happening in my household. I don't know about you, Gigi.
Yes, I was watching the funeral from 11 o'clock this morning. At about quarter past 11 this morning, I discovered that there was no tea. So I've had no tea at all on my marathon watching of the funeral, which literally ended, what, 7 minutes ago? I think she was finally interred in Windsor. So I've managed to sort my face out. I'm getting a long way from the camera, so you can't see how bloodshot my eyes are, but I have not had a cup of tea yet today. It's a really bad state of affairs.
I must say I managed to stay without a tearful moment throughout the day, but then when they zoomed on King Charles and while they were singing the national anthem at the end, this is when it finally hit me. I'm like, ah,
Yeah,
yeah,
that poor man was
emotions travel.
crying. Yeah, well, I've cried all day long, but I'm just, that's my nature. I'll cry at adverts, quite honestly. But I was a little bit worried that they wouldn't hurry up and put her in the ground before this was due to start.
Yes, indeed.
Oh
But
dear.
no, we love Her Majesty the Queen. I mean, I've become I don't my personal story is that I was not born in the UK, but in 2012 I took a citizenship oath and did it very consciously. And obviously millions of people in the UK absolutely love the monarch. So huge respect to someone who died at work, and that's exactly what we're doing, isn't it, Gigi?
Yes, I'm
We're
going to try and pull myself together now, Evgeny. So, okay. Oh, I'm really struggling. How embarrassing. Okay, so we don't have a lot of people here yet. I'm sorry, it's totally my fault. It's been my son's birthday as well, and the chaos of the weekend. I forgot to set up the live, so I'm really, really sorry. Say sorry to people who've missed it, but they're not here. So on to those of you who aren't here and aren't here to hear me say I'm sorry. But there we go. So let's just do our brief introductions and then we'll get going. Actually,
exactly.
Evgeny,
Yes, I
can you
can
do
do
it?
the honors. Yes, absolutely. So, while my business partner pulls herself together, uh, we're gonna give you a little run through what we're about. So, my name is Yevgeny, and together with Gigi, we run Day One Careers. Um, we both started Day One careers slightly in different circumstances. So I'll tell you about my story, and then when Gigi rejoins, she'll do it from her own end. So I was at Amazon for just over 3 years as head of marketing and a category leader. And I interviewed quite extensively as a hiring manager for my own team and as an interviewer for partner teams. And while doing so, I noticed that candidates who invested a lot more effort into preparing for interviews had a lot more success in terms of moving to the later stages of the interview process, regardless of the profile, the professional fit and relevance that they had on their resumes. So what I started doing is I started experimenting with phone screens. Rather than rejecting a candidate who had a great resume at the first phone screen in case they didn't do well, I would offer them a little bit of coaching in terms of how they could do better in the subsequent interview rounds. And then what I would do is I would progress them to the next interview round. And lo and behold, what I've noticed is that people who receive just a tiny bit of coaching from me during the last 10 minutes of the first phone interview were doing better, and they were going further into the interview rounds. So I started Day One Careers, as we know, as the brand on top of my Amazon day job in my last 2 months at Amazon, and then I ran it as a side business throughout my short stint at Apple. And then at some point in time, one of my students, who was also Gigi's students when Gigi was the Amazon Interview Wiz and the head of Amazon Interview Wiz Academy, she suggested that Gigi and I should meet because we helped her at the same time, but we didn't really know about each other. And so Gigi and I met in a British pub and thought that would be a great idea to pool our resources together, because we both believe that Amazon interview expertise and interview expertise in general should be accessible to as many people as possible. And that is something that we share in terms of vision. And so from February this year, we relaunched our both businesses under Day One Careers, and the rest is history. So now you have us. So Gigi, I've just did my own sort of side of the intro, and I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I was an Amazonian for about 5 years, worked across a couple of different business units, and specifically, as most leaders do in Amazon, most Amazonians do, I was obviously interviewing 1, 2 times a week. Then I became a bar raiser, which I'm sure most of you all know what a bar raiser is, so I won't go into that. But I did a lot of interviewing, and whilst I was interviewing at Amazon, I started to be able to see some trends between people that seemed to really know what they were talking about and had it all together, and those that didn't. And I started to literally ask candidates how did they prepare, and it turned out that these were people who had managed to get access to an Amazon interview coach. Being an Amazonian, learn and be curious and all of that, I started to look into kind of what that kind of costs, and discovered at the time that it was quite expensive. It was a couple of years ago, but these people were paying a couple of $1,000s for someone to help prep them, which seemed to me to be extortionate. So I launched my YouTube channel, which I set up as the Amazon Interview Wiz whilst I was still working at Amazon. I left Amazon and just kind of continued it as a side hustle. And then Yevgeny's just told you how the two of us met, and hey presto. So we have our Amazon Interview Wiz course through Day One Careers. We obviously have this YouTube channel. We post content on LinkedIn. We dabble with Twitter. I'm not sure that either of us are particularly committed to Twitter, but there we go. We dabble a little bit there. And part of what we offer to candidates alongside all of that is this free kind of Q&A session where you can ask us anything you want to ask, and we will do our very best to answer it. A couple of things to say. I know there's only a few of you today because of my personal mess up with getting the thing set up. So we'll probably only run for about half an hour unless we get materially more numbers. But please just write your questions here on the right-hand side. Do us a favor and try and contain your questions into a single kind of block. If you do multiples, sometimes they get broken up and we lose them. So please keep them together. Please don't ask generic questions. Hi, Gigi, Evgeny, I've got a program manager interview tomorrow. Any tips? Yeah, there's a whole YouTube channel full of them. So please don't ask us very vague questions. On the other side of the pendulum to that one, please don't ask us very, very specific questions. Gigi, I've got a network engineering manager technical interview tomorrow. Can you tell me what questions they're going to ask? No, I can't. Tens of thousands of job families in Amazon, and we aren't technical experts in all of them. But other than that, anything in between, please do feel free to ask us those questions, and we will do our best to answer them. Okay, I have my act together now, Yevgeny, so I think we're good to have a look at the few questions that we've got down the side here and pick some and start answering them.
Well, if you'd like, I can start. And I'm just going to start from the top. So this is a 4-part question.
Cool.
People. Okay, well, at least I can track all the 4 parts. So here we go. So this one is from Atif. I got interviewed for data center facility manager position with AWS. Got a call the next day from the loop informing me that I passed the loop. Congratulations, but didn't get the offer. That happens. Waited more than a month, and after more than a month, got a call from the recruiter saying that the person is now moving to another region, whose replacement they interviewed me for. Any advice for the situation? Well, I'm not entirely sure what the question is because I'm not clear what the recruiter actually wants from you in this case. Does the recruiter want to offer you the job? Do they want you to reapply for the job? So I'm not sure I actually understood what's happening. Gigi, did you understand what was happening?
Not really, because the recruiter's saying that the person is now moving to another region whose replacement they interviewed me for. So that sounds like the person that they interviewed you to replace for is moving to another region. So I don't get it either.
So what,
So
right? So
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't know, right?
Atif,
Okay, so Atif, if you want to clarify this, do clarify this, right? And we'll try to we'll try to answer, but I think we've got some more from Latif because we don't have that many questions coming through, so we might as well stick with
yeah, we'll
Latif's
do Atif and
questions.
somebody
Let's
else
keep
asks
going.
more.
So requested the recruiter to share my profile with the hiring managers for some similar open roles. Good, that's what you should be doing. No acknowledgement or response from the recruiter. Yep. Can't really say much. That does happen, unfortunately. Does the candidate profile show the hiring teams if the candidate has cleared the loop? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It does show the hiring manager and the bar raiser. So the hiring manager and the bar raiser will see. I believe everyone else will see their interviewing history and hire as well, unless there have been some changes to that. GG, would you know?
So anyone who is a recruiter will be able to see Atif's profile in Hire. They will see the information on there that says that he cleared the loop. He's just clarified that a bit further down that the person he was supposed to be replacing is no longer moving, so the job no longer exists. It's a bit of a waste of everybody's time, but so yes, anyone who is a recruiter who is digging through Hire will be able to get access to Atif's profile. They will be able to see that he got an inclined for the role that he applied for. That inclined lasts for 6 months. So you have an offer to join Amazon that lasts for 6 months only for the exact job family that he applied for. But even though you've got an offer, you're effectively, and Yevgeny talks about this being pre-cleared, and I feel I've just taken over the answer to this, Yevgeny, but sorry.
That was
So
the
you're,
intent. That was the intent.
oh, good, jolly good, jolly good. You've been pre-cleared. So if you look for another role, the recruiter, if you fit the profile, will look at you and go, wow, this person looks like a really good hot prospect for me because they've been pre-cleared and therefore I probably don't need to take them through a full loop. I can hopefully either send them through a mini loop, which is basically a couple of maybe 2-3 interviewers, no bar raiser, and then hopefully they'll get this job. So our suggestion to you is just apply for other roles, exactly the same job family that you applied for before. And because you have already been pre-cleared, you are much more attractive than any other candidate who kind of meets the profile requirements because you've already been through the process and you are effectively pre-rubber stamped. So don't wait, just go for it and apply for other roles would be our advice, I think.
Yes. Also, Gigi, unless they changed something, even though the offer itself is open for 6 months, but the record that you were actually had an inclined loop, that's forever,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, absolutely right.
Which is good, even
Yep.
if, God forbid, you don't kind of jump on this opportunity and you
Yeah,
end up interviewing later.
you still look like someone who's a very strong candidate even once that 6 months has expired.
Excellent.
Okay,
I think we
right.
handled that well.
Okay,
I'll leave the
fine.
next one to you, Gigi. Let's see.
All right, okay, let's see what I come up with. So let's pop Atif back in there. All right, let's get you back in there. Kurt, thank you very much. I'm so sorry I fell apart a minute ago. I feel much better now. I don't know what's after hormones as well. Middle-aged women, eh? Honestly. Right, what else do we have here? Okay, So, hey, Anita. So, you're interviewing for Kuiper. Oh, I've got some great recruiter friends who work on Kuiper. So, if you came to us because they recommended you to come to us, woohoo, they're so right. And if they didn't, Kuiper team are awesome. So, you'll be talking to your recruiter today to prepare any tips on good questions for her. Okay, so good questions to ask your recruiter. Obviously, find out as much as you possibly can about the role, because the worst thing ever is going into an interview process and not really understanding what the actual job is. You'd be surprised how many times that happens. So, have a whole list of questions that will help you really, really clarify what the actual work is. So, that's always number one. Second thing that I would say is worth asking recruiters up front, Yevgeny may have a different view to me, is compensation. That's another thing that I personally always want to know before I make any material investment in an interview process. Are you going to be able to give me the type of money that I'm looking for? Now, what you don't want to do is kind of give everything away in terms of the money that you're looking for. You want to maintain some wiggle room for negotiation, but I would certainly be asking them what the salary range was for this particular role. 50-50 that they'll tell you. We've got some great recruiters who are very transparent, and I think the Kuiper team, are a good team. So I would hope that they would share that with you. Some teams, not so much. If the question gets batted back to you and you're asked, well, what salary range are you looking for? If you haven't already pinned down yourself what range you want that you're looking for, then I would just say, oh, okay, well, would really prefer it if you could share the range for the role with me, but seeing as you seem unable to, I'll come back to you with a view of what range I'm looking for, and then you don't have to commit yourself to anything there and then. So that would be the second thing that I would do. And then the third thing I think I would do is I would try and get a little bit inside information around the recruiting process to date for this particular role. So, any tips on, okay, well, are there any big themes around why the team are rejecting candidates so far in this role? Are there any kind of key things that the hiring manager is looking for in this role, just to get some key tips behind effectively some direction towards what the key leadership principles are? I think those would be my top three, but Evgeny, I'm sure you've got some additional, if not better ones to add to that. Do you?
I think yours are great tips. The one thing just at a macro point, and I would get this a lot from candidates, is um, uh, is there such a question that is like a taboo, right? Is there a question that folks are afraid? If you ask this question, the recruiter presses an eject button and the candidate's thrown out of the interview process, and the answer is no. You can ask whatever you want, right? As long as long as you are asking in good faith as someone who is interested, curious, motivated to explore working in that team. There's With regards to salary, a lot of candidates will not even attempt to touch the question of compensation until the recruiter brings it up. And as Gigi says, and I can't agree more with that, you can always pop the question first and say, hey, what is the compensation range for this role? Because it does need to be worthwhile for you. So I totally agree with Gigi, but at a mindset level, our advice to everyone, there are no questions that are not worth asking, because it's one of the most important decisions that you'll ever take in your life in terms of where to work. So choose wisely. I think that probably covers it. So let's move on, and let's see. I've got this question from Mansoor. So Mansoor is saying that he's gone through the course of interviewers and it was amazing. Great stuff, Mansoor. Thank you for the feedback. Means a lot to us. That's why we do what we do, not for fancy feedback, but to actually make it useful to candidates. You have a loop interview planned for the operations manager. Can you please advise for more areas to focus during your preparations? So, Mansoor, I think with regards to behavioral interview part of your interviews of your loop, you are more than covered with the Amazon interview whiz on all things theory. In terms of practice, we highly recommended that you take full advantage of the premium community. If you haven't yet requested the premium member role in our Discord, that's a good time to do it now. And get as many mock interviews with partners, with the same candidates in our community that are also interviewing. You won't believe it how much more confident you will be with reciting your stories and being flexible to handle follow-ups and drill downs from interviewers once you've practiced responding to Amazon interview questions with your stories. That's going to help you a lot. Then also make sure that you are ready to answer any functional questions then that the operations team would want you to ask. We don't prepare for functional assessments or functional interview or functional competency interviews because there's just way too many roles to do that. But the best thing that you can do is to ask your recruiter whether there will be any functional assessment, and if there is there anything that you can do to prepare? At the very least, if the Loop panel is planning to throw some functional questions your way or assess you for functional competencies in any other way, they will tell you. They may not tell you the exact questions or the exact areas, but at least they will give you, in most cases, some tips. And so don't overlook this area. But otherwise, I think Amazon Interview and partner mock interviews will cover most bases for you. Gigi, would you have anything to add?
I will just add one thing, which is we have a video on the YouTube channel, part of a new series, which is me interviewing current Amazonians about their interview experience. And there's an interview there with a operations manager in the UK. His name's Giovanni, and we talk about lots of things to do with his preparation, but we also get into some specifics about what he believes to be the key leadership principles and what makes a good operations manager. So if you haven't seen that video, I suggest you go check that out and try and squeeze a few tips out of Giovanni, because that's his job. He's an operations manager. I think that will help you quite a lot.
Excellent.
Okay. Right. I'm being very slack here. I'm not looking ahead. I really do need to focus a little bit more. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Rajesh. It's my turn, isn't it? Yeah, it's
Yes,
my
it
turn
is your
today. Yeah.
turn.
Okay. I need that tea. Honestly, I had no idea what clearly a mess anyway, but that's my baseline of being a mess. It's like obviously the lack of tea makes it even worse. So, this is your second time interviewing with Amazon. Okay. You didn't make it last year. Can you use the same writing sample that I sent last year? Hmm. There's no reason I can think of why you shouldn't use the same writing sample. I suspect that writing sample will still be on file anyway, but pretty confident that no one's going to look at it. Usually, if you interview within 6 months, your recruiter won't ask you for a new writing sample because they'll use the one that's already on file. So clearly, it's still on file, but I see no reason why you shouldn't use the same one. All I will say is it's always going to be worth going back over it and looking at it again and asking yourself, can you make it even better, even crisper, even clearer? But on a matter of principle, I see no issue with reusing the same one. Do you, Yevgeny?
No, no, I don't. And in fact, I'm going to go as far as to say that unless Amazon has some reason to believe that your writing skills have deteriorated over the course of the year, whatever they captured in the first writing sample would have been fine. So yeah, I would say save yourself some time
Mm.
and yeah, submit the same.
Or download bit Grammarly. I'm all in with Grammarly now. I didn't really pay much attention to the advertising until Yevgeny started telling me how great it was, and I'm all into Grammarly. So it might just be worth just quickly downloading the app. It's totally free, and giving your doc a once over. It may just offer you a couple of, tweaks, etc., that will just sharpen up even more.
Definitely, definitely. Agreed. All right, well, I'll go with the next one. And so this one is from someone with an amazing nickname, Just Trying to Get Rich. And um, that's great. Once you find the right way, just
Let
tell
us
us.
know.
Let us know how to do that. We'll be all ears. Meanwhile, the question is, if you have a family emergency, will the team be understanding or upset if I need to push the interview back? Um, so generally speaking, if you have a valid reason to push the interview back, uh, uh, whether they will be annoyed, upset, or jolly happy, It really depends on the individual person. It's not something that you should be necessarily concerned about. So I would say that as someone who used to be on obviously the receiving end of reschedules, I would say that if the candidate has a family emergency and needs to push the interview back, I just, all that would happen is the recruiter would get in touch with me, drop me an email saying the candidate had to push the interview back due to a family emergency. Then my loop invite will just move from my calendar from one day to another. And that's basically it. So it's not even a conversation. It's just an FYI that this is happening. Um, if the candidate pushed the interview back for some other reason, um, unless it's a completely ridiculous reason of which I cannot remember. And I've had candidates who said that they don't feel that they're ready and they want to push the interview back. To be honest, for me, it's not even a conversation with the recruiter. It's literally the meeting invite disappears from one day and goes into another day. And between today and my encounter with the candidate, I would have forgotten about the candidate as a hiring manager. Like, I don't spend my days at Amazon thinking about candidates until I meet them. So I think that, and this is not just for you, this is for all other candidates. If you feel like you need to push the interview back for any reason that affects you being able to offer your best performance in that loop, I would do it. There is a caveat there, and you should know this, right? We're all big girls and boys here, right? So Amazon has a first past the post interview and hiring system, which means that they will have to offer the job to the first person who clears the bar, who gets an inclined loop. So if you do push your interview for whatever reason, and they interview someone before they interview you, and that someone raises the bar and gets an inclined loop, they will have to offer that person the job. So there's always that risk. But as we always say, it's always better to push the interview than get that interview when they interview you, get an inclined loop, and not get a job offer because they offered it to someone else, as opposed to getting into the loop unprepared and get a rejection. So that would be our advice. Anything to add, Gigi?
No, I think the advice is absolutely perfect and spot on. I want to just rewind to a point that you made that I think is really, really important for candidates to remember. You mentioned that you're not really thinking about a candidate until the moment that you meet them. And it's so true. And I think, um, obviously, an interview process is incredibly important to the individual candidate. And you think that, or you overthink about every single minutiae of detail in terms of can I ask this question and what happens if I say this, or what happens if I push it back a week, or blah blah blah, or what if I reach out on LinkedIn and other candidates think about it so much more than the people on the other side, because on the other side you're dealing with, in any given week, you could be interviewing 2 or 3 different candidates for the same, if not different positions. So you on the other side, it all washes over you, all washes over you until you actually meet the candidate. So I, I wanted everyone to, not that you're not important, but as with everything in life, you aren't the center of the universe. And therefore, you don't need to worry about the minutiae of detail because the other person is not paying as much attention as you are. So you can just kind of relax a little and realize that every little thing isn't going to be the do or die that maybe it feels like on your side of things.
Absolutely, totally agree. And apparently, the universe doesn't even have a Santa. Um,
Yes, it does. And it's in Cricklewood. Did you not know that?
no, I didn't. Just
You need to watch Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I haven't. I haven't. Although my ex boss at Amazon, I think his farewell note started with the number 42, and then he had to explain to me why.
Oh,
He was
he
very
did he?
disappointed that
Right.
he had to
Okay. Yes, I'm
explain.
disappointed in you as well, Yevgeny. For a man that's as well read as you are, trash space novels, and clearly, you need to go. I'll buy you one. I'll send it to you. Get it on Amazon in a few
Christmas is
minutes.
coming. Brilliant.
Yep. Yep. Christmas. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Right. Okay. I'm just going to quickly call out D here, because there's a lovely message here. So it came on to let us know that you passed your loop. You ended up on a different team and starting in a few weeks. Yay!
Well done.
Amazing. Fantastic. You're so excited. I'm very happy. Oh, you are more than welcome. Wants to thank us for our extraordinary content. You are very, very welcome. And we're the best. So sweet. Thank you very much. We are absolutely thrilled for you. And now I have something in my eye as well. Okay, well, congratulations to you. Have an
Well
amazing
done.
Amazon career. And don't, if you become a hiring manager, don't forget to send your candidates our way. All right, so I'm going to quickly pick this one then. So, oh, right, I'm going to try and pronounce this. I'm really sorry if I get this wrong, by the way, but I'm going to try. Antronis, hopefully I've got that right. So, hi there. You've got an interview for a senior HR ERC. I'm not sure what ERC is. Have you any idea, Evgeny? Employee. Oh, well, okay.
No, I
An
wouldn't even
HR
try.
role. Yeah, HR role. Can we provide any tips on what leadership principles you could focus on? Okay, so I'll take this in two parts. So, well, hire and develop the best, but anyone on this this call will tell you that, right? Because you're in HR. That's the obvious one. We try not to tell people what leadership principles we think they should focus on because we'd be guessing without having looked at your job description. So, what you want to do is go and check out. There are a couple of videos on the YouTube channel which are job description deconstructions, where it's just me, where people have given me their job description number, and I've gone on to the Amazon website and live read through the job description and demonstrated to them how they can try and find the leadership principles within the language of the job description. So please go watch those two videos, and hopefully that will give you some guidance on how to deconstruct your own job description so you can identify what the key leadership principles are for your role. Second one, or should you prepare a minimum of 2 responses per principle? Okay, so you are definitely going to want to prepare a minimum of 2 responses for the key leadership principles that you have identified from your job description. But you're also going to want some insurance policies, right? Because sometimes they don't write such great job descriptions. It happens. Or sometimes maybe you haven't got it quite right when you've read the job description. So it's always worth preparing some backups. To make your life a little bit easier, what you might want to try and do is where you are trying to find answers for your backup leadership principles to utilize the kind of the scenarios that you've found for your primary leadership principles and find a way of reshaping those scenarios for your backup leadership principles. That's a little shortcut to not having to come up with, what is it? There's 16 leadership principles now, right? So that's 32 different stories, which is quite challenging for almost the most tenured and senior and high performing individual. So that would be my tips on those two. Yevgeny, would you offer anything further?
No, I think this was very well summarized. I would have offered exactly the same guidance.
Cool. I will drop her back into the queue then. It's your
Cool.
turn.
All right. So here is a question. Okay. If I have a level 3 operations supervisor interview, how many stories do I actually need to remember for the interview? So unless they interview differently for an level 3, if they have decided to run you through behavioral interviewing, then what I would do is I would ask for the roster of the interviewers and see how many interviews you will have. Because typically, one behavioral interview will cover 2 LPs. So multiply the number of interviews by 2. That will give you the number of leadership principles, and then multiply the number of leadership principles by the multiply the number of leadership principles by 2, because you need 2 stories for every leadership principle, and that is how you can work out how many stories you actually need to remember. But that's my assumption, unless Gigi, do you know if they are interviewing for L3 ops roles any differently? Maybe they're trying to cram more LPs per interview?
Well, it's possible that, I mean, as an L3, I would probably expect no more than 3, maybe 4 interviewers. May even be that you don't get a bar raiser showing up because it's an L3. You'll have a bar raiser in your debrief, but you won't actually be interviewed by a bar raiser. That'd be quite common at this level. 2 leadership principles, most likely, maybe 3. But the other variable is about how complicated your stories are. At an L3 level, people tend to have not particularly complicated stories, and therefore they run quite short. So the shorter your story is, obviously, the more time there is in the interview that everybody has to fill. So for you, it's going to be a balance of, can I make my stories not long as in full of rubbish, but can I go into enough detail that is relevant detail so that my story is longer than 2 minutes? And therefore I can kind of minimize the number of stories that can possibly be fit into an hour. That said, maybe you've got a 45-minute interview. I think L3 interviews tend to be a little bit shorter than kind of the more senior roles. So it's really, really hard to predict how many questions you're going to be asked because of all of those variables between the number of interviewers you're going to have and how long your actual stories are going to end up being. So to a certain degree, you can control that. So think about really trying to lay detailed stories with lots and lots of relevant detail in them so that you don't end up basically with 2-minute stories, and then you're going to end up with, having to do 15 in a kind of 1 hour interview, let's say. That was my quick math. I think that makes sense. Okay. We drop that person back in. Drop A back in. Oh, where's A?
Done.
You've done it. Okay. Cool. Let me just. Oh, there was A. Right. Okay. Okay. I'll just quickly do this one. Oh, Raghavendran. Hopefully I've got that one right. So what can you expect from a written round after the first phone discussion? You're interviewing for a senior product manager. Okay, it's not really a round. So you'll be given a task to do a written sample ahead of moving to loop. It's an additional data point for the assessment of your loop interviews. It's not an individual round that you have to pass through. What can you expect? There are two different questions that are generally asked. One is an I'll write a lot question. One is an invent and simplify question. You can pick from either of those, and literally you just have to answer the question. That's really all there is to expect. You need to make sure that you write it concisely, specifically, no weasel words, well structured, blah de blah. There's a video that we have on our YouTube channel all about how to approach the written sample. So expectation, someone sends you two questions and you need to answer it. Kind of simple as that. It's not overly complicated. As a senior product manager, the bar will be quite high for you in terms of what is considered to be a good writing sample. Product managers spend a disproportionate amount of time writing documents. Everyone who goes to work for Amazon is surprised by how much time they spend writing documents. Of all the people in Amazon that write documents, product teams write the most. So there's going to be quite a high bar for you. So please do take it very, very seriously. It will be quite a significant contributor as to whether your team want to hire you, as to whether you write a good sample or not. Anything I missed, Evgeny?
No. Fully agreed.
You know what we didn't do?
Yes, I do.
Right, should we do it?
I don't know. I think I'm happy to press on.
Let's press on then. Okay. We'll avoid that for today.
Yes, I agree. Cool. So here is a question from, gosh, is it D.A. Eldon? Please forgive me for butchering your name. At Day One Careers, we butcher people's names, as you would have seen for already.
It took me a really long time to work out how to say your name. I probably
Yeah,
still
I
get it
know,
wrong.
exactly. And we will not stop, by the way. Anyway, so is it wise to create a new Amazon Jobs account with another email if I was immature with my account and had applied to tons of unrelated roles? Sadly, no, because the company has an excellent applicant tracking system, which I believe they've created themselves, that uses all sorts of fancy algorithms to connect bits of your resume to bits of your address and email history and names. I mean, in an absolute theory, if someone wanted to create a completely different profile on Hire, you'd probably have to become a different person. So the minute you upload the same resume, Even if you create a different email address, it will connect the dots and it will just list as multiple email addresses under the same candidate entry. I would say is the fact that you applied for a lot of unrelated roles, yeah, that wasn't great. However, that's not the end of the road. I think um, a hiring manager who is really looking forward to fill a role with someone with relevant experience will always look at the candidate profile who has relevant experience. And while some may be annoyed or find it suspicious that you perhaps over applied, and some of them may not. Also, it also depends on the location. I can tell you from my side, I've hired someone who was based out of Luxembourg, who had a ridiculous application history in Luxembourg. But the reason why that person had that ridiculous application history in Luxembourg is because Amazon is pretty much the only place in Luxembourg where you can get a job as a product manager. Because if you think about what Luxembourg is, and the reason why Luxembourg is important is because this is where the European headquarters are for Amazon. Um, the place itself is full of finance organizations, banks, insurance companies, and the likes. So if you're in finance, there's lots of jobs. If you're a product manager, Amazon is the only one. So that person was applying pretty much for any job that they could find on Amazon. I could understand that. So I hired them, and they're just now getting promoted. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Water under the bridge. Just move on. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
Nothing to add. Should we pop Dia back in?
Yes, there's another one there.
I'm going to go back up higher to the top, actually, because we missed something that I want to get. So here we go. So Gona, I'm going to go with that. Apologies. And that's a very, very cool profile picture. I think I look at that and go, yeah, that person's cool.
Yeah. No,
That person's cooler than
could be
me.
like a founder, like a
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
it's
tech
really like,
founder. Yeah.
oh, that person's way cooler than me. All right. So you are more than welcome. So you've reviewed almost all of our videos on YouTube and used the inputs to prepare, and you've got an L7 offer at AWS. So yay, congratulations. L7 jobs are big, big jobs. So that's really impressive. Congratulations. And when you're hiring, because you're an L7 and you will be hiring, send your candidates our way. I know you
Please
will.
do. Please do.
Okay, so here's the one that I will answer. So, hey, Vardman, maybe? You've started the prep for an L6 Senior Analytics and Media Manager. That's an interesting combination. Analytics and Media Manager. Okay. Based in Canada. Cool. You're going through the great content on the website and YouTube channel. Is 1 week of prep enough for your phone interview? Yes. I would be very comfortable with 1 week preparation for your phone interview. There is a video on the YouTube channel. Of course, there is. There always is about what to expect from your first interview. Broadly speaking, it's a bit like Bandit Country in phone screen ones. When you're at Loop, it's much more structured because you've got oversight from a bar raiser, and all bar raisers are trained the same way and they enforce those rules on everybody. No one gets any oversight when it comes to phone screen one or phone screen two if you end up with both of those. So it's much more kind of open to the interviewer to choose what they want to do. In the main, however, what we find from candidates is that they get the introductory questions, tell me about yourself, why Amazon, walk me through your resume, talk me through a project that you've done recently you're proud of, all of those kind of ones. They also, if it is applicable, tend to get functional questions in round one. Now, you've just said that you're an analytics and media manager. So, which again, I really struggle with it as a combination, but suspension of disbelief here. But from an analytics point of view, I would expect you to get some functional questions about how you would deal with certain types of problems and how you would do certain types of analysis. Maybe there's some kind of SQL requirements in the role. You'll be able to see that from the job description. But anything like that, I think you would probably expect them to test your functional capabilities in round one. And then if there's any time left, then you can probably expect to find yourself with one, maybe two behavioral questions. Then it becomes quite tricky because there are 16 leadership principles. How are you going to know which ones they're going to ask you? Even if you do the deconstruction of your job description, most job descriptions tend to reference somewhere between 8 and 10 different leadership principles. So then it gets a little bit tricky. So the best advice we can offer you is to go to that round one with maybe 3 stories that are just stories that you're really proud of in your career history that kind of lead towards particular leadership principles that tend to be quite important ones. So you're an analytics manager, so we can assume dive deep would be really important. Probably deliver results, that's always important. Customer obsession, that's always important as well. So you can probably do some about what may come up in the interview from a behavioral point of view. But 1 week, more than enough. Go check out the video, and then using the tips I've just given you, hopefully that should be enough to get you to the right place. Anything to add, Yevgeny?
No, I think it was expertly handled. So I'm gonna do two questions. One was very, very quick, and both questions are about money. So number one is there a mechanism to upgrade the mini whiz scores to the full package? The short answer is yes. Just get in touch with us, and we'll upgrade you for the difference. Now the real question here is, for guessing salary ranges, what size do you find the most accurate? Do you offer packages for salary negotiation? So number one, right. If you're in a tech role, then levels.fyi tends to be the most useful. Although you should know that salaries in tech are in a state of flux, and Amazon, I think as of 1 year ago or shortly later than that, they made some revisions to their compensation bands and specifically to their base salary. So I would say at a level of the total compensation, it's probably more reliable than a level of a base salary. So levels of FYI would be my first stop, especially if you're in a tech role. Glassdoor, treat it as an input, but an input only. I think if you have the same data point from Glassdoor and from levels.fyi, I would say levels.fyi is probably more indicative. Reason being is because the way that Glassdoor solicits salary is that this is their condition of offering you a free access, and a lot of folks, that's why, because they're drinking from the hose on salary submissions. The salaries are completely just bogus, and they don't seem to be verified. So just treat it with a grain of salt. Then the third one is, and this is something that I have always been advising all candidates to do, and it will require just a tiny bit of courage from you, and that is use LinkedIn, and specifically just get in touch with current Amazonians who are doing the same or similar roles to which you're applying to in what's important in the same location, right? And ask them, just tell them that you are interviewing with Amazon. You want to make sure that when it comes to time to negotiate, that you are being offered a fair compensation. Just use the word fair, right? Because that basically means that you're not looking for anything out of the ordinary. You just want to be compensated fairly, just like the rest of us. And ask them to spend literally 5 minutes with you to maybe look at the numbers together with you and see if this is in the ballpark fair. And using these three inputs will help. You will find people in our community who have successfully landed offers and negotiated these offers really well, who have reached out to other Amazonians on LinkedIn, and you'd be surprised how many of them will be happy to help you. Anything you would add, Gigi?
Nope, your advice is fabulous, as always. Okay, so I'm going to move on to this one for, Suyash. Going for that. I'm so sorry. Apologize to your parents, please, if I just butchered that. So you applied for an SA role, that's a solutions architect for everyone who doesn't know, but you also applied for a cloud infrastructure architect role in parallel, which too has been accepted. That's cool. So when and how do you inform both recruiters and hiring manager? You don't. You don't need to worry about that. They can see it on the system, how many roles you've applied for. So you don't need to tell them. They already know. Don't worry about it. That's it. I have no other advice. Yevgeny, would you add something?
No, I'd say I'd say it's absolutely fine. Just
Yeah, just roll with
don't
it.
try to hide it. If
Yeah,
they
yeah,
ask you, hey, we see in the system that you've applied for these two roles. Is that true? What are you thinking? Just let them know. Be transparent. There's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. When it comes to scheduling your interviews and working out who gets to interview and what, just leave it to them.
yeah. They'll
All
organize
squared.
it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So here's a question on. Do we want to take a question on progressing?
I think that's a
Oh,
really difficult question to answer. I had a
yeah.
look at that, and it's like that's really impossible to answer because it's so generic. There are so many variables that drive how and when somebody gets promoted. I don't think that's something that we can just kind of blur here without actually having some kind of backwards and forwards dialogue with the individual themselves. So sorry, oh, I'm not even going to find
Shmuel.
that. Shmuel. We really can't answer that. It's far too broad ranging as a question. Sorry.
Yes. Right. So let's work with this question. It's an interesting one. I interviewed for an L6 position about 6 months ago, but couldn't make it after the loop. Should I use improved versions of my previous stories or craft brand new ones? Oh, this is also a difficult question to answer, but I think we need to tackle this one because it's an interesting one. It makes me think. So it really depends on why is it that they didn't believe that you raised the bar? And you will never know this because there might have been, let's say you had 5 back-to-back interviews and you might have raised the bar in 3 of them, didn't raise the bar in the 2 of them, and that was not enough for the hiring manager and the bar raiser, and so you didn't get the job. So it's very, very difficult to actually forecast which of your stories you should keep and which of your stories you shouldn't keep. So at a minimum, and I hope it goes without saying, do generate content from the time that you spent in the industry between your interviews. That's important. But otherwise, I think without actually seeing you as a candidate for coaching, and I'm not saying this to, to sell our services at all. It's just it's very difficult to know whether some of your content, which particular bits of your content, your stories, raise the bar or not. I would suggest joining at the very least, just joining our free community, and we'll tell you shortly about how to do it, and getting yourself some interviews with partners and just see what others would say and how what opinion they would give you. But otherwise, the only way to actually form an opinion is to hear some of this content from you in the coaching session. I don't know. Gigi, would you have a magical way of figuring this out differently?
Nope. Nope. No way to know until we've actually heard the actual examples, I'm afraid. So I think Yevgeny's advice is right. Join our community and get some practice in with some other candidates, and they may be able to give you some insight as a minimum. Okay, I'm going to move us on to our next one. So, hey, Anand, you have a phone interview next week for a software development manager. Is system design part of the interview that you should prepare? Yeah, systems design is definitely a requirement for a software development manager. Coding is not. I know that's a bit different in Amazon than it is, for example, in Facebook, where SDMs are required to pass coding rounds. You will need to do system design for sure. So kind of in the like of what Yevgeny just said a second ago, although for different reasons, I think it's worth you joining our free Discord community. There are always SDMs hanging around in our Discord community, and you may be able to get some insights from somebody there in terms of the specifics that they went through in terms of systems design. But yes, you absolutely will be required to do systems design, and therefore, yes, you absolutely need to prep for it.
By the way, Anand, the only thing I would add is that we also have our premium community for those who purchase our courses, and within that premium community, we've started building a forum specifically for system design questions, like design YouTube or design Twitter or design something with a feed algorithm, which we, neither Gigi nor I, have absolutely any expertise with, but it gives you and the rest of our technical community of candidates a way to discuss approaches to solving these types of questions. So definitely, if you will become a member of the premium community, then do contribute to that part of the forum. We're very excited about it and actually created it as a response to our technical candidates asking us to create such a space. Right. I think we'll be able to handle one more question, right, Gigi?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, so
It's your turn.
it's my turn. Okay, fine. So let's have a look. Um, let's have a look. So Stella has a question here. Hi team, asking out of curiosity. Interviewed for a tax manager role, but my feedback was that I passed the loop, but they offered the role to someone with more tax experience. The assumption was that the role is given to the person who passed the first, rather than choosing someone who has more experience. So it in an odd way, both could have happened, and I can see a scenario how this would have happened. So the person who they interviewed and who had more tax experience than you was the person who they interviewed before you, and that would have been the person whom they offered the role. They decided to interview you while they decided to interview you because they thought that you were worth interviewing, and they realized that you were great. You raised the bar on leadership principles, but the job was no longer there because they offered it to someone else, and they just made that comment that they offered it to someone who had more tax experience. And to be honest, it's probably not the comment that I would have offered, but I would just offer that, hey, we offered the role to someone else who interviewed before you for reasons that probably, shouldn't have been communicated to anyone. It's not, it's something Amazon could have held to themselves. So Amazon, with a few very notable exceptions, Amazon will indeed offer the role to the first people who raise the bar, who they interview. Teams, you should remember, not just you, but the rest of the candidates, that teams are free to construct their panels as they wish, and in case they decided to give the role to someone who also raised the bar but had more tax experience and who also was interviewing before you, they were at liberty to do so. So a bittersweet situation for you, but not the end of the road completely. Please do apply to the same or similar roles and get your recruiter to find you the job, because just because one team thought that just because one team offered the role to someone else, it doesn't mean that other teams will pass on you, especially since you're now pre-cleared for Amazon. What would be your take on this, Gigi? It's a tricky one.
It's tricky because from a process perspective, it is meant to be a first past the post process, right? There's not supposed to be any comparison between candidates, but what you're supposed to do and what always happens are not the same thing. So I think any number of scenarios could have happened. So the scenario that you just described perfectly makes sense. That scenario could have happened. A scenario where they did something they weren't supposed to do, which was interview two people very close together and then do the debriefs within the same day and then have a debate between themselves as to which one has more tax experience than the other, could have happened. It's not supposed to happen, but could have happened. So I think the important point here is there's nothing you can do about it now, Stella, right? It's done. Someone else has that job. So you need to decide, how do you want to move forward? If you got good feedback on your performance from a behavioral point of view, then sounds like you're potentially a great candidate. And if you wanted to, you could and should apply for other Amazon roles. So I know it's hard, but generally my advice to people is you don't know what's happened. You're never going to know what's happened. So don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do about it. So look forward and decide what you want to do next.
Agreed. And with this one, I do need to go.
Yep,
So
you
Gigi, are
go.
you
I will
okay to
wrap.
finalize the session?
Yep, that's fine.
All right,
I'm good to go.
everyone, have a great rest of the week, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
See you, Evgeny.
All right,
Bye.
and I'm gonna make sure that I don't end the
Don't
broadcast
end it
today.
this
I'm just
week.
going to leave the studio, and
Leave
I'm
the studio.
pressing.
It's the button at the bottom, not
That's
the
the one
button
that
at
I'm
the top.
pressing. Yep, I know that now. Anyway, take care, folks.
Oh, I'm teasing him. He cut me off last week and ended the whole session when he was leaving, which was kind of funny. All right, so what we just want to give you now is, do you like my yellow nails, by the way, everyone? I'm not so sure I'm keen on them, but there we go. Right, if you go to this URL here, you can grab our free Day One Careers taster course. It's a complete deep dive into customer obsession, tells you everything you need to know about customer obsession, teaches you the particular kind of leadership principle, learning methodology that is unique to us at Day One Careers, which is called facets. And we break down the leadership principle for you to make it really, really easy to identify examples from your past that are relevant. Customer obsession happens to have 4 facets. Other leadership principles only have 2, but gives you a taste of kind of how we work in Day One Careers. It also will tell you what the interviewer is looking for in your answer for customer obsession. Literally tells you what they're looking for. Like, it's a guide. So invaluable. So make sure you take hold of that. And then there's a little mock interview, me interviewing me, obviously, very believable, different makeup, hair. It's cool. Not. Go check it out, totally free, but more important, it also gives you access to that free Discord community that we were talking about earlier. We have 2,000 plus members in this Discord community, all who are or have been preparing for Amazon interviews. Amazing people, help each other out, give each other advice, do mock interviews with each other. It's such an amazing community. It's a privilege to be part of it. So if nothing else, if you don't want to watch the course, take the course and you can join the community and make use of all of those people who want to help you and would like your help in return. So with that said, I think that's everything. So thank you very much for joining today. If you were here at the beginning, I am so sorry that I could not hold myself together. I'm feeling a bit better now. So thank you very much for your patience and coping with my blubbering. And we will see you next week. If you have any questions on anything, you can always put little comments into any of the videos on the YouTube channel, and we will endeavor to answer that within 24 hours. So if any of you who have interviews coming up, we wish you the very, very best of luck. For those of you who have already secured roles, we are very proud of you. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody, and stay safe. Bye-bye.